Sikhism was basically a world religion or a world movement. It was not confined to any one stream of thoughts. It was trying to combine everybody. Guru Hargobind Sahib, he inherits the Guru Gaddi or is bestowed with the Guru Gaddi, and he then he creates the concept of the Miri Piri. So primarily what he said was there were three messages, and that in a way encapsulates the whole Sikh thought. One was Naam Japo. The next he said was Kirat Karo. Now that's an absolutely unique concept. And the last one, which we all now know because it is associated over the years with Sikh thought, is Vand Chako.
We are at the dramatic Bikaner House in Delhi, and we have here with us Mr. Vikram Sodhi,
Thank you.
who is an authority on Sikh history and in particular the Gurus. Now, the thing is that many of us are very unfamiliar with this terrain,
Yes.
and I would like to ask you to sort of introduce the people who will be watching this, the world of the Gurus and the world of the Sikhs. Sodhi sir.
Let me start with Guru Nanak. We all know that Guru Nanak was the founder of the Sikh faith, but I won't dwell too long on any one. Guru Nanak preached not a religion, but really a way of life. He was trying to bring all the religions together under the human spirit and trying to remind us that instead of creating boundaries amongst us, in our belief systems and our way of life, that we should look at the oneness of God and the oneness of humanity and how we can all coexist following our own paths. So primarily what he said was there were three messages, and that in a way encapsulates the whole Sikh thought. One was Naam Japo. Now we all know that to think of the Almighty is something that a human should aspire for. So Naam Japo, to always remember that the Almighty was the reason for our creation. The next he said was Kirat Karo. Now that's an absolutely unique concept because he encouraged his followers who were called Sikhs simply because they were seekers. A Sikh is a Shishya, so a follower, a disciple. So when you say that so-and-so is a Sikh, well, so can you be a Sikh because it merely means that you're a follower. You're a follower of the message of oneness. So anybody who follows the message of oneness is a Sikh. You don't have to wear a turban. You don't have to have a beard. That's an identity. That comes much later on. It's a part of the process of evolution. But to begin with, the message of oneness, Naam Japo, Kirat Karo. Kirat Karo means that you must toil and earn a living, an honest living by labor. Whatever you do. If you're a writer, be a good writer. If you are a carpenter, be a good carpenter. So by the sweat of your brow, you should earn an honest living. So that was the second most important. I wouldn't say that this was more important or that is more important. I would say the three guiding principles. So Kirat Karo, and the last one, which we all now know because it is associated over the years with Sikh thought, is Vand Chako. Vand Chako basically means to share. to share your good fortune. If you have good fortune, why is it that you feel that only your family is entitled to the good fortune? Or why is it you feel that your neighbor is entitled or your relatives are entitled? Why not share it with humanity? So that from Vand Shako came the concept of the langar, where each person was invited from, irrespective of caste, color, creed, religion. All those divisions were considered not important. Rich, poor, gender, male, female, none of that was important, because you were encouraged to eat as a human person, to share your good fortune with humanity. So the concept of the langar came out of Vand Chako. So these are the three guiding principles of the Sikh. Now the evolution is that during that period, they were fighting, they were living in a particular ecosystem. There were wars, there was oppression, there was tyranny. So the gurus will obviously raise their voices against. Guru Nanak raised his voice against the massacre that Babur had, kind of inflicted on the local populations. The local populations could not, withstand that kind of assault. We were a peace-loving people in India. They called us, anybody who lived, below the Hindu Kush was called Hindi and Hindu. And, the Hinduism was not considered to be a religion at that time. It was considered to be peoples who lived in the region of India. So you were then considered to be, a person who lived in India.
I'll ask you one question. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji was widely traveled. I mean, he had traveled to Makkah, traveled to China.
Yes.
And he had, as I discovered during our episodes on the liberation of Bangladesh, the Gurudwara in Dhaka goes back to his time.
That's right.
So tell us something about his travels.
You see, his travels are called Udasis. They are divided up into different regions. There was a travel to the south, which brought him down to the tip of India and to Sri Lanka. So he went all the way to Sri Lanka. I don't know how they crossed, but they must have had ships. But Sri Lanka, then there was a travel to the east. So into what is today Assam, Bangladesh, Myanmar, he went and traveled that entire region in the east. Now when you go look at the west, he traveled to the tip of to Maharashtra, the western coast of India, and then beyond. He traveled to Baghdad. It's known, Makkah, Medina. He traveled to. There are reports also that he traveled to the west, as far as Rome. There is some talk. I don't know how much evidence exists that he also had a dialogue with the Pope in the Vatican. Very little record exists, but there is talk that there was a man from the East who came during that period of his travel, who had a discussion with the Pope.
So that enriched his thinking, right?
Absolutely.
And how did that manifest itself in the way he constructed this new thought, which was a very powerful thought?
So his powerful thought was, I think, if you're talking about his travel, the intent of traveling was samvad, dialogue, discussion, to understand different peoples, to understand different cultures. Today we say that, we have difficulties with languages. Can you imagine somebody walking from every 2 days or 3 days, the new language emerge? How would he understand the language, the customs, the food, the social etiquettes of those people? So that was how he was enriched by his dialogue with different leaders. He had dialogues in Varanasi with great members of the Hindu faith. He had dialogues in Makkah, Medina with leaders of Islamic faith. He had dialogues, which I believe in Rome, with the Vatican. He had dialogues with Buddhist India at that time, because he went north, all the way up to Tibet. And I can see all of these having an influence on what eventually became this big way of life. Sikhism became a way of life and a way to combine and join the different thoughts of people.
Next question is that, like the Buddha gave his sermon in Sarnath, How did that happen in case of Guru Nanak Dev Ji?
In Guru Nanak Sahib's time, it's not just one sermon, because he delivered these sermons everywhere he went.
I see.
So we cannot say that this was more important, that because each of his messages were relevant to the area, to the people, to their customs, and how he could educate them and bring them into this fold. So that
Then
was.
what happened after him?
So after he came back, and then he wanted to also encourage you to lead the life of a householder. So he went to Kartarpur and farmed the land there himself. So during his latter part of his life, he actually became a farmer and a householder
How nice.
to encourage people to take care of their family responsibilities. Your responsibilities towards your family, towards your neighbors, towards your community. So that feeling of, that in those days, holy men were considered to have renounced the world.
Which he did.
But he didn't. He wanted to bring that message that you don't need to renounce the world to reach God.
It's a very powerful idea.
It was way ahead of its time, that you could do your duties as a householder. You could conduct your duties as a husband, as a son, as a brother, as a father. At the same time, you could connect with God.
So now tell me what happens after he goes.
So after he goes, then he passes on the Guruship. Now, this is also very interesting, because in our system at that time, it was almost mandatory that you passed on your learnings to your son. In his case, he had very capable sons, but he didn't pass on the Guruship to his sons. Though they were extremely capable, they were men of God, but he probably felt that they didn't have the right mindset to take on the responsibilities of being a guru of the Sikhs. So he chose one of his disciples, Angad. So Guru Angad Dev, which means he's a part of my body. Angad. So he was given the name Angad by him, that he is a part of my body, an embodiment of the Guru. And he when he passed on the Guruship in his lifetime, he touched his feet and prostrated himself before Angad, who served him all his life, and said that you are the next Guru and you are capable of taking on this responsibility. So Guru Angad passes on the responsibility to Amar Das.
Was he his son?
No. Again, he was from a different caste, So he passes on from a different, what we call Gotra, maybe not a Gotra, but definitely from a different family. And he passes on the Guruship to Guru Amar Das, who was a Baba. And Guru Amar Das then passes on the Guruship to his son-in-law, the husband of his daughter, who was Guru Ram Das. So Guru Ram Das is the first Guru from the Sodhi family, but his wife or Guru Amar Das in his wisdom had decided that the Gaddi should remain within that family. Did not necessarily mean, so the Sodhi family, by virtue of that, from the 4th to the 10th Guru, they discharged the responsibility of Guruship, but not necessarily the son. The most capable person from that extended family would be then the Guru.
Then what happens?
So the Guru Buddhi comes to Guru Ramdas. Guru Ramdas conceives of Amritsar. He buys the land, and it was called Ramdaspur. Amritsar was originally named Ramdaspur. And when he conceives of the Sarovar and the Hari Mandir, that was the conception of Guru Ramdas, and was carried out by his son Guru Arjan Dev. So Guru Arjan carried out the work that was visioned by his father, Guru Ramdas, and he compiled the teachings of the first 5 Gurus into the holy book, which was then called the Adi Granth, Ad Granth.
I see. So this
And that was, so it only included the teachings of the first 5 Gurus and other holy men of the times and other thinkers of the times. So other thinkers and holy men like Farid, Baba Farid, Bhagat Ravi Das, we call him. He's also known as Guru Ravi Das and Surdas, and so many other thinkers of the times. Kabir, So we had a Muslim Sufi thought also that came in. So any capable teacher who had a powerful influence at his time, his teachings were imbibed into the Guru Granth Sahib.
Then what happens?
So now, after his son, Guru Hargobind Sahib, he inherits the Guru Gaddi or is bestowed with the Guru Gaddi, and he creates the concept of the Miri Piri.
So was Guru Hargobind the one who was incarcerated in the prison in Gwalior?
That's right.
So what is the story?
That's right. The story is very clearly that the Mughal governor of the time, felt that the Guru was getting a big following. There was a lot of people moving towards the Guru, and that also was creating a big, perhaps they felt there was a challenge to the Mughal authority or to the imperial power. So that is why they felt that they should imprison Guru Hargobind Sahib. So they imprisoned him in Gwalior, and a holy mystic from Islam, he interceded on behalf of Guru Hargobind and said, "How can you imprison a man of such great virtue?" So when he appealed to the Mughal Emperor saw the folly of his actions and released Guru Sahib from the prison. And that's when the concept of the Miri Piri took shape. So you became not only a saint, but you also became a soldier, and you wore the two swords, one to signify temporal power and the other to signify spiritual power. So he combined, and he said, your responsibilities are not merely spiritual, you have a responsibility towards the world too. So it's the sovereignty was the first concept that he gave to the Sikhs, and the right to bear arms. Now the right to bear arms, as I mentioned sometimes, I clarify this, is normally the right, it is the sovereign right of the ruler. So the ruler of the times, for instance, an emperor, he gives the right to bear arms to his chosen ones. So he chooses which of his subjects will bear arms. Similarly, the Indian government has that right to grant you a license. Today, if you want to have a license of arms, you apply to the Indian government and they give you the right to bear arms. So similarly, but the revolutionary part of this thought process was Guru Hargobind said that each individual is sovereign in the eyes of the Lord. So you cannot take out the right to self-defense from the individual. So the right to self-defense or to defend the faith and his family is each individual's fundamental right. And you are only answerable to God.
After Guru Hargobind, what happens?
So after Guru Hargobind, his grandson, Guru Har Rai Sahib, takes the Gaddi, becomes the 7th Guru. And after him, his son, the younger son, Guru Harkrishan Ji, takes the Gaddi, and he gets bestowed on the Gaddi, and he becomes the 8th Guru. After him, the Guru Gaddi goes back to the youngest son of Guru Hargobind, Guru Tegh Bahadur. So it goes back 2 generations, and goes back to the youngest son of Guru Hargobind, Guru Tegh Bahadur. So Guru Tegh Bahadur is bestowed with the Gaddi by Guru Harkrishan Sahib, who was in Delhi treating people with smallpox. There was an outbreak of smallpox and a big epidemic in Delhi of smallpox. So he rushed to Delhi to treat people in the best way he could. He had the largest, at that time, the largest Dawakhana, the largest herbal garden in India known. It was in Kirtpur Sahib. So he felt that he had the knowledge and the drugs and everything else, and the plants and the medicinal plants and the knowledge to treat the people. So during that outbreak, Guru Harkrishan Ji, he passed on as a young Guru. And when he was passing on, he indicated that the next Guru would be his granduncle, Guru Tegh Bahadur. So Guru Tegh Bahadur was then found out by the Sikhs in Baba Bakala, and he was brought to Kirtpur Sahib to ascend the Gaddi, which was then the seat of the Sikh faith. Because Guru Hargobind had moved from Amritsar, which was his family, to Kirtpur because of its strategic location. It was strategically located. It was ringed by hills and river. So on 3 sides there were mountains, and on one side there was the river. So it was a natural boundary. So a big army In those days, you couldn't cross the river because they were kilometers wide, 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers wide. So that would mean that you would have to get bogged down. Or if you were to attack with a large army over the mountains, you would get to know with the movement of a large army. So whereas in Amritsar, the Sikhs were totally exposed to, you had two great Mughal provinces, Lahore, Sirhind, on both sides of Amritsar. So it was very easy for the Mughal Empire or the governor to march on to Amritsar and arrest the Sikh Guru. By coming to Kiratpur, they kind of ensured that the Mughal authority could not reach them easily to disrupt their way of life and their preaching.
So after him, what happens?
So after when Guru Tegh Bahadur ascends the Gaddi, and he then decides to establish a new city. So 10 kilometers from Kiratpur, on the banks of the river Satluj, which is a holy river, because it flows out of Mount Kailash into the Mansarovar lake.
Right.
So the Satluj river, he goes and he establishes the town, which is now known as Anandpur. Right. At that time, when he bought the land from Rani Champa of Bilaspur, he paid for that land. It is said by historians that he paid 500 rupees, which was a large princely sum in those days. And he paid for the land and bought the land and established the city of Anandpur, which was then known as Chak Nanki. He was honoring his mother, Mata Nanki, so he named Chak means home of Nanki. So it was the home of Nanki was Anandpur. That was Anandpur Sahib was founded. Yeah. So let's go back to Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, because he has a very big impact on the history of India. Correct. Because he was a contemporary of Aurangzeb, the sixth Mughal ruler. Yes. So the sixth Mughal emperor was Aurangzeb, and by that time the Mughal Empire had reached its peak. Correct. So the Mughal Empire was the encompassing power of India, and he felt that it was his duty as the ruler to bring people into the Islamic faith. So a lot of conversion took place during that period of Aurangzeb's reign, and there was a move to convert the Kashmiri Pandits, which was the largest seminary for the Hindu faith, because a lot of Brahmins were trained in Kashmir and sent to all the Shakti Peeths of the Hindu to be resident priests. So the training took place in Kashmir. So it was a very important part of the Hindu faith. So that's why if you convert the fountainhead, then the faith crumbles. So that's what the intent was at that time. This is of course the version of the historians, and I'm merely repeating that. But it is known that a delegation of 500 Brahmins led by Pandit Kirparam came to Anandpur Sahib and pleaded with the ninth Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, to intercede on their behalf and stop this oppression and conversion, and to go and engage the Emperor Aurangzeb. So, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, encouraged by his young son, who was 9 years old at that time, Guru Gobind Singh, to go to Delhi. Because Guru Gobind Singh said, who could be better qualified than you to stop the oppression, to stop this tyranny. So he felt that his father was best qualified, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib. So Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib went to Delhi, and that's another story. We won't go too deeply into that. But he was beheaded in Delhi, and his followers three of them were tortured in front of him. Bhai Matidas was sawn into pieces. Bhai Satidas was burnt alive, and Bhai Diyala was boiled in a boiling pot of water to death. So all of this was to try and influence or to threaten or to frighten the Guru into embracing and changing his system. Because if that was to happen, then it was considered that the Hindu faith would collapse. So that's why Guru Tegh Bahadur is known as by many historians as Hind ki Chadar, that he came out in the defense of the people of India. That he's also called Shrishti ki Chadar. That means that he came out in the defense of humanity. Because whenever you do anything which is forcible, then you are going against human laws. So that's why he is also known as Shrishti ki Chadar. Now, after the beheading of Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib, his body was cremated in the home of one of his followers, because when they spirited his body from Chandni Chowk, where he was beheaded, the Gurudwara Sisganj Sahib now stands. But when he was spirited away, the soldiers of the Mughal, this thing, they realized that his body had gone missing. So they had started trying to trace it. So one of the followers burnt his house where Rakabganj Gurdwara stands today. Lakhi Shah al-Labana. So he burnt his house in order to cremate the Guru's body, but the head, the cease of the Guru, was carried by one of his Pai Jeta, who later became Pai Jeevan Singh, to Anandpur Sahib. And he was received in Kirtpur by Guru Gobind Singh, the young Guru, and taken to Anandpur Sahib and cremated with all honors in Anandpur Sahib at a Gurdwara in Anandpur Sahib, which is also called Seesganj.
Then Guru Gobind Singh Ji becomes the Guru.
Then Guru Gobind Singh becomes the 10th Guru, and he was a man of learning. So he was a man multifaceted. He was a poet, he was a scholar, he was a linguist. He could write, read, and create poetry in Persian, in Braj Bhasha, in so many languages, Sanskrit. And he created Anandpur Sahib as a place of learning, because many of the learned people at that time who were in the court of Aurangzeb, were being withdrawn patronage. So since patronage was being withdrawn from them, they didn't have anybody to how they could continue, because in those days you called everybody Kavi, but it actually meant scholar. It actually meant that a person who was pursuing is learned a scholarship on, for instance, the Ramayana or the Mahabharata or some other book or some other scholarly philosophical treatise. So then a lot of those poets at that time took refuge in Anandpur Sahib, and Anandpur Sahib became an academic, what we would say, what would you call today when you get all these ideas to come in?
It's a university.
A university. So of sorts, it became a university. It became a font of learning, and Guru Sahib took a deep interest in every subject which was being, and so a lot of the Dasam Granth was written during that period, and so a lot of his teachings and the research by different scholars, in which Guru Sahib had a role, because he wanted the Ramayana to be retold in a simpler language. He wanted the Mahabharata to be retold in a simpler language, so that it would be available to the masses. So a lot of the great Hindu epics and things were retold during that period in simpler languages, so they could reach the common people.
And he then says there won't be any more Gurus, and the Guru Granth Sahib will be the Guru. Is that right?
Yeah. And during his period, he also introduced his father's teachings into the Guru Granth Sahib. So there were 116 verses of Guru Tegh Bahadur which came into the Guru Granth Sahib, and that became one of his defining moments. But I think his main defining moment was when he started a new order, the Khalsa Panth. And that was when he invited Sikhs from all over the country. In that time, Sikhs were not merely a Punjabi phenomenon. Sikhs existed in Assam, in Maharashtra, in Bengal, Bihar, and every part of India at that time. So he sent out a message to all his congregations, Afghanistan, and the Sikhs congregated to Anandpur Sahib during Baisakhi 1699. And they congregated, and it is said by Mughal historians that 80,000 Sikhs came to Anandpur Sahib. And 80,000 in those days was a huge number. Imperial armies were that large, So you see, 80,000 people converging was a big statement. And it was a defining moment in Indian history, because the Guru then declared that the Khalsa, the pure, by choosing the Panch Pyaras from different parts, different castes, a message was sent out that all Indians, all people who lived in India, were welcome into this brotherhood of the Khalsa, and the Khalsa was pure. And some of the symbols that you see today, the beard, the kada, the comb, the kirpan, all of these are symbols which were designed by the Guru to be at the identification of the new Khalsa brotherhood. And in that brotherhood, all were equal, irrespective of caste, creed, and all that. And you renounced everything. If you became a Khalsa, when you took Amrit, you renounced not only your family, your familial ties, your religious ties. So actually, the Khalsa has no religion. It is in the service of humanity.
So, and Guru Granth and Guru Gobind Singh Ji said that the Guru would be the Guru
Yes,
Granth Sahib.
yes. When he was passing on, he had decided that there was no longer a need, because now the Guru in the physical form had already, the Guruship had survived in Sikhism and Sikhi for 240 years, in 10 generations. So he felt that the time for a physical Guru was no longer required. And all the wisdom of the Gurus had then been passed on, and the learnings into the Guru Granth Sahib, and that would then be the next master of the Sikhs, and that would teach you how to live a life, devoted to humanity.
I think it's been a fascinating insight, frankly. I mean, I didn't know much of what you said, and I think everyone who watches this will go back discovering Sikhism.
Yeah.
Because it's spiritually such a moving and an appealing idea. I want to add one thing, which I find quite fascinating. When Maharaj Ranjit Singh was restoring or rebuilding the Golden Temple, Harmandir Sahib,
Yeah.
one of the persons who laid the foundation stone was a man called Mian Mir.
Yes.
So, how did that kind of bonding between...
You see, Mian Mir was a very, very respected Sufi Muslim scholar and a saint. He was a very highly respected. And he realized that Sikhism was basically a world religion or a world movement. It was not confined to any one stream of thoughts. It was trying to combine everybody. It was trying to be the bridge between all the religions of the world. At that time, the two major religions in India were Hinduism and Islam.
Correct.
So it was a bridge between Hinduism and Islam. That is why Mian Mir was invited to lay the foundation of the Hari Mandir, because the Hari Mandir is actually the temple of God, of Hari. And it had 4 doors, which signified that people from all 4 corners, all 4 castes, all religions were invited to come and pray to the Almighty, or to worship the Almighty in a common place which was common to humanity.
My last question to you is the story about Malerkotla, as to how the Sikhs guaranteed that they will protect the Muslims of Malerkotla, which is a very, very powerful story, which carries on even to date.
You see, Malerkotla is very interesting, because the significance of Malerkotla starts with the times of Guru Gobind Singh moving out of Anandpur Sahib, because he was given assurances by the Mughal rulers of the time that they would, if he moved away from Anandpur Sahib, that there would no longer be any the siege would be lifted and people could be allowed to continue. So when he moved out of Shri Anandpur Sahib, he moved to the river was in spate. It was under flood, and the Mughals or the Mughal Empire or their generals or advisors decided to attack the Sikhs, in spite of all the assurances. So when they attacked the Sikhs were faced with a river in flow in front of them, and the Mughal Empire army chasing them from the back. So they had very little option but to disband and move into different directions, and they crossed the river. Those of them that survived. So much of the literature also perished during that time, because Anandpur Sahib had a huge library of work. So during that period, the Sahibzadas, 2 elder sons of Guru Gobind Singh, stayed with the main Jatha of Guru Gobind Singh and moved to Chamkaur Sahib, where they had a defining battle. And the 2 younger sons stayed with Mata Gujri and moved to across the river and went from place to place, and were finally arrested because they were betrayed by their domestic. And they were finally arrested and taken to the court in Sarand, and by the Mughal governor of the time. And during that time, the Nawab of Malerkotla interceded on behalf of the of the young Sahibzadas and said that you cannot settle scores with young children. So he interceded and he raised a voice of dissent, which in those days was very difficult. So the Nawab of Malerkotla pleaded on behalf and raised a voice of dissent, in spite of which the Mughal governor took a decision to brick the two young sons in a wall. So they were bricked alive, and when news of that reached Mata Gujri, she passed on. And so the very fact that the Nawab of Malerkotla had openly challenged the governor and had openly interceded on his behalf to spare the young Sahibzadas, that was what the Sikhs felt that they owed, the people of Malerkotla and that family. So the Mughals the followers of the Nawab of Malerkotla and his descendants always have the protection of the Sikhs.
Even till now.
Even till now. So you have Malerkotla, which is largely an Islamic or a Muslim principality, which elects a Muslim to the Punjab Assembly. Because and the guarantee the Sikhs gave. So even during partition, they did not leave, or they did not need to leave Malerkotla, because they were protected.
Would there be something else you would like to say before we wind up? Because it's been an absolutely fascinating conversation.
I think the thing of most relevance is that we are passing through very turbulent times. We are passing through times which are very similar to the times which Guru Nanak arrived. And we are passing through a similar phase. So it's very important that we realize the oneness of humanity. We are constantly being told that we are different. We are constantly being told that so-and-so is a Muslim and so-and-so is Christian, and these people are Jews, and these people are Hindus, and these are Sikhs, and these are Buddhists. And we are constantly being reminded. But why aren't we being reminded that we are all part of the one big human family? So that is the contribution of the Gurus and Sikh thought to this human debate. So that is a contribution, I think, which is very relevant today. That we need to think more as one big family, and we need to think more that we are all brothers, the universal brotherhood. And what we in Sikh, when we do our ardas in the Gurdwara, or when we do our supplication, when we do our ardas towards in front of the Guru, we ask for Sarbat da Pala. May all humanity flourish. Sarbat da Pala. Saryan da Pala. Sab da Pala. Sarbat da Pala. So that is the main prayer that we raise every day in front of our Guru. We ask for prosperity for the whole of humanity and mankind.
Thank you so much. You've been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much for